So today is Thursday, December 14th. We're about a week and a half off from a scheduling perspective when we typically do the meeting. But today we actually have a guest from CMRPC that we wanted to actually get the readout. We also have Bill Cundiff here sitting in for the actual meeting today. So if we're ready, we're going to get going. And this is the majority of the agenda today. We had a few other items that I think we can clean up, which was discussing, Eric, I think I had some of them too, is discussing some of the new business opportunities. I have had interactions with some also opportunities outside, which we'll discuss after the CMRPC discussion. So that way we don't have to keep you here all the time.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for meeting today. I appreciate you being flexible. I apologize for having to reschedule at the last minute.
I understand.
But we ended up with got somebody to cover a meeting that was going to conflict, and then unfortunately they weren't able to do it at the last minute. So I wanted to tonight just to kind of walk through what we've done so far, and the big piece that I would like to do is show you guys the appendices that we put together, the maps, the inventories, sort of the meat and potatoes of it, and then talk about, make sure everybody's comfortable with that and what we've pulled together, and then talk principally about what the next steps are going to be. We're in a pretty good position, I think. We actually just received a few grants that came through this year that's not necessarily going to directly affect this project, but because of that, we're probably looking at less competition for some of the technical assistance money that we have available. So we had already been discussing this project with my executive director, phase 2 of this project, from basically since we started. So it's been in the pipeline to begin with. But we were sort of unsure whether or not we would be able to do, we'd have to do sort of just a piece of it next year, or if we'd be able to do the whole thing and maybe even get to the strategic planning part of it by over the course of this coming year. And so based on funding, we might be able to do that. We still have to look at the how it's going to shake out, and they're going to have their meeting on that. I think the first one in January. So
Okay.
So I'm hoping that by the end of January, beginning of February, we can start talking about how that's going to shape up.
And have you had any updates with the selectmen yet?
We have not. No.
You have not, because that will be the next step then after probably this update.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the memo that I brought here, and I got copies of it in case you didn't print it up.
I read it, but I didn't.
I was going to say I read it actually also.
Okay, great. This is essentially just trying to set the table for what is going to end up being the ultimate strategic plan. And so just to sort of back it up for anyone who's not familiar with what we were doing, we set this project up as the first piece of a multi-phase economic development strategy plan. And this is sort of the first step that we would do in many different circumstances. We were going to do this all as one big piece, so we just decided to do this chunk this year since that's what we had the funding to do. What we did is we sort of looked at the base economic indicators, looked at the community economic development strategy data, the CEDS data. That's the big project that the
region puts on.
Yes, thank you. So we used some of that data as the basis. We looked at a couple of other sources to try to get some indicators into how the town is faring. And the indicators do look good. The town is definitely on the affluent side. There's, according to the Massachusetts data, the unemployment rate is pretty low. The number of jobs that have grown in town since 2010 in the past 6 years has been pretty remarkable, because you get, according to the Massachusetts data, the rate was about 8.3% in 2010, and then by 2016 we're down to like under 4%, which is, by government standards, is essentially full employment. So that's the employment sector is looking very good in town. We also tried to look at where some of the key employment centers were by industry. And what we found was the largest ones were the professional, scientific, management, and administrative and waste management services. Really what this is trying to capture is where the people who live in town are working. It's not necessarily giving us any sort of indicator.
So it's not a radius or anything around
It's
the town,
not,
it's just
no.
general?
This is from the US Census, and
Okay.
they're looking just at people who live in town. So we have some information that wasn't included in here because I wasn't sure how relevant it is, but we had some drive time information and commute pattern information that if you'd like, we can include that either.
Actually, that would be
That'd be
good.
very important.
Yes.
Yeah, when we give you this one, we can include that in there, or we can roll it into whatever we do.
That'd be
as a
awesome, thank you.
phase. And then when we tried to look at the asset inventory, what we were doing in this phase is trying to create an inventory of all of the assets in town that could potentially be utilized as, to leverage economic development. And the areas that we looked at principally were obviously the commercial and industrial uses, but we also wanted to look at historic properties, potential cultural assets, and open space assets, because obviously the existence of the Douglas State Park is a huge economic draw. You're getting a lot of people from out of state and out of the region coming there, mostly in the summertime, from what we understand. But that's something that we definitely need to look closer at in the second round.
Are there any stats from the state actually on what they perceive as the draw of the forest?
There maybe we didn't collect that information though as
Okay.
part of this round.
Just
But
curious, because that would be good if there are any actual key state indicators that would show us what they think is going through. Because I don't know if we actually would even have any idea
of
how much of a draw that actually. Wallen Lake's different, obviously. I would be talking about actually the trails and the forest
Right.
itself.
Yeah.
Wallen Lake, we can get that easily probably by just number of attendees per day.
We get that from the
I would think
police department.
DCR would probably have that number.
Actually, for Wallen Lake they would.
Yeah.
But I don't know how you track the.
No, they
the
have it
far-
for state forest too.
How would they track that?
They would have, I don't know how they track it, but
Oh,
I'm sure
okay.
they probably have some kind of projection.
Okay, that'd be awesome.
The same, Kerry Vandenacker, he runs Wallen Lake and he controls the state forest for DCR.
Okay, good.
So,
That'll be a good number.
I don't know, do you know Kerry?
I don't
I can see
know.
if he has some kind of info on that.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, that'd be helpful, thank you. So the pieces that we looked at for commercial is we actually did two different inventories. The first one I think is far more useful, but we wanted to be complete, so we did two of them. This one was in 2012, the Douglas participated in the Blackstone Valley
Yes.
priority development exercise. So what we've been doing actually in other towns, we've been trying to update that information. So we've been working with towns and trying to find out how many of these parcels in these sites have been developed, what's still available, what's still relevant. So I used some of that material that we did to fill out the parcel information for the PDAs that were in the town. Talked with Bill a little bit on some of this, and he identified a couple other ones that we probably could add. They've been added at the bottom of this table as potential PDAs, and this material will be available in digital form to
Yeah.
everybody. So that was just sort of the two big pieces. The ones was the Northwest Main Street, which was this piece over here, and then we also added the Douglas Grammar School property to it. This was flagged, this one up in the northwest corner, but I didn't add that yet because I wasn't 100% sure
Yeah.
if you wanted that as a priority development site or.
How much access is there to that?
Well, this one came up for a discussion because we did have someone inquiring in town about a large area that's kind of isolated, doesn't need much for water or sewer.
Interesting. Okay.
And so we were kind of, at the time, I met with Ron, we
Like a farm
we
type
owned
setup?
it was an alternative to cell towers. They actually
fair
had
enough.
blimps that go up. And
Oh,
so, yeah.
okay. Is that up near
And they-
Whittier?
Yeah.
That's on the southern line near Whittier, right?
That
Yeah.
is, and it's a big town-owned piece, but it's zoned residential. We'd have to do some rezoning on it, but it was, and that's the only reason I put it on at the time, because, it was a candidate that we were thinking about.
Okay. And it's still obviously residential right now?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But the other one you're talking about in the northwest corner,
Yeah,
what's
this
the
one-
access to that one? I don't remember.
That's Cliff Street.
Oh, that's Cliff Street, okay.
Yeah, there's one operation there that's now a scrapyard that kind of is a gateway to the interior
Yeah,
pieces.
Okay.
So, and that's something that we can consider adding to the priority development area map, the update, which we're looking at, I'm thinking that we should try to do as part of phase 2, is to make sure that we get all of the parcels captured in all of these districts that we know are areas that the town wants to focus in on.
And have you added some of the new ones they put up for sale in 16, heading towards Uxbridge?
Yeah, those are on here, right there.
Heading towards Uxbridge?
Oh, Uxbridge.
There were those new ones
Yeah.
for sale that they just posted on there. There are like 3 of them.
There's a large area that's industrial.
Corner of Monroe,
Yeah,
and then past that, there's one on the left and one on the right by Leos. I think it's the new real estate group that's...
yep,
no, that way.
that's right here.
Okay, you did. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I didn't know if those made it.
That's where the corner of Monroe is, right there.
So there's that one, and then you already have all this marked on.
Correct.
There's a whole bunch for sale there.
Correct.
Okay. Just checking if they made it.
Yeah.
Good.
Now, is that one that you marked off as the school, is that the one you sent me
It is.
information on? Okay.
is, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how that fit in. I printed it out somewhere.
Yeah, it's commercial up here in the front. You got a
Okay.
little difficulty with wetlands, but I mean, it's town-owned, it's town-controlled. If we could do something there, that'd be okay too. So I would just like,
That's next to the Monroe corner one. Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, and this little corner up here also has the valve company that distributes
correct,
valves.
yeah.
Forgot the name of it.
And is there a trucking company there too? Angers or something like that?
That's actually, I mean, it's, I think he's right in Oxford.
It was in
Oxford.
Oxford, right there.
Yeah, and so all we would really need is an idea of which parcels, what sort of the boundaries you'd like, and we can add that in very easily. That's actually not a substantial issue. So the one thing that we do would,
I'm sorry, Rob.
I'm sorry.
I just think it's important not to just throw everything out there,
Agreed.
but where we want to
Just
try and
selective things.
focus.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, we know this area is obviously industrial.
Right, so this
we
is-
know area up there. Yeah.
This is a little broad. I mean, the whole point of this exercise is to try to work towards developing a plan and where target the important areas.
yes, exactly.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then we want to be able to know the areas that we can zoom in on and get the detailed information about what's actually on the ground and know who we should talk to when we get into the community visioning phase, because we definitely want to be able to try to get the existing property owners to the table, try to get as many people in as possible so that we can, when we're crafting the strategies, we're bringing in as many stakeholders as possible. So it just minimizes the amount of friction when you actually go to implement it, obviously.
Right.
So,
I was talking to Matt Wojcik, the town administrator. He suggested, as part of the visioning or charrette, or, you know, we put some effort into thinking how we want to execute that, to try and get the most interest as possible. He suggested possibly, you know, maybe an hour before town meeting, or get something where we might get some involvement a little more aggressively than maybe we have in the past when we've had these kind of workshops.
Like an open house-ish style thing beforehand.
Yeah, I don't know how much
idea.
time you typically would get on those charrettes, or,
it depends on how much. Usually, you'd need at least an hour and a half,
okay,
because usually it depends on how much of an initial presentation we want to give, how much context we want to give to the
Right.
town before we go into the workshop piece of it.
right.
Usually, we do about a half hour for that, and then you need 45 minutes generally at least for workshop activities.
It's doable though. That's not horrible. An hour and a half.
Yeah, I mean, usually we go for about 2 hours, but it can be done in an hour and a half.
Yeah, what I wouldn't want to see happen is, you know, town meeting is looming, and then you get people strolling in that don't know what's going on, and, you know, so, you know,
Yeah.
it's kind of like a double-edged sword, but, or having to continue it, that's happened in the past, which is not ideal, because then you
Yeah.
get different people that didn't participate, you lose some people, and,
One thing that we have done, or my colleagues have done, I haven't gotten to do it yet, but one thing that we've done in the past as an agency is we've had someone give a brief presentation about an upcoming community event at a town meeting or another big event like that. And then they stay around for the duration of town meeting and have a little sign-up sheet and try to get people to give us their email so that we can send them information and invite them if they're interested in coming. And that's had some success.
Yeah.
We also have access to Facebook, honestly, that right now Dynamic Douglas is fairly large, that we could probably get interest out of that. So we have mechanisms right now, I think, that we can use.
That didn't
Yeah.
exist in the past, actually.
No, it's
Yeah.
within the
Right.
past 3 to 5 years is
Right,
really when it
right.
really came up.
All right.
So.
We did a an experimental Facebook advertisement campaign for Mendon just to see how it would go. And we did, I think, like 2 or 3 days worth of ad buying, so it was like $15. And we were doing a survey, and we actually got almost 100 some odd people
That's great.
right off that, right in that little window where it came in. So
Right.
it can be very effective if it's done right. So especially if you've already got a pre-existing group with a lot
Really?
of people
That's
that are active on it.
fascinating. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that is a pre-existing group, all right.
Yeah.
Very vocal one, too.
Yeah, there wasn't one in Mendon, so I was a little bit skeptical about how it would work.
Okay.
But we set it up where we targeted specific age groups, specific people. You only lived in Mendon, and we got a really interesting, sizable bump just from that one little ad
We should
buy.
probably add that to the list when we're ready.
He did suggest survey instead of charrette too, so as an option, so that seems to
And we
work.
could probably pull that one off easier.
Yeah.
Doing a survey.
Yeah, with a little bit of publicity, signs out in the street, up by the fire station, you'd get, and then advertising
But I
on
think
Facebook, whatever.
Facebook is the biggest
It's the
one now.
easiest way right now.
You could have it here, maybe in the.
Well, if you do a
resource
survey, then you don't even need to do that. That's, I think, the key.
room. Oh, the
Just to
survey.
gather their feedback and input and get them up to date on what's going on.
Yeah, well, definitely. If we're looking at the resident piece of it, or if we're looking at specific property owners, I think that is.
Well, the resident piece, yes. I think
Yeah.
for the property owners, that's obviously probably in person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you definitely want to give them the opportunity to do it as a conversation.
I agree on that.
There. So just going to walk through really quickly the other pieces that we had pulled together. If you saw the package that I sent to Bill, you may have noticed that there were 2 separate appendices with historic properties. The reason for that is that the first one was one that came out of conversations with the Historic Commission. I got to sit with them for, we were here for maybe an hour. We're talking about got to get them to think about the historic properties in town through the lens of economic development and things that the town could take advantage of. And that's where this list came from. These were things that they were just spitballing, and so these were
Great.
the ones that popped out of their head. This one was the entire inventory from the Mass Historical Commission, which
Wow.
captures everything.
Yeah, who put that thing together? That thing's really.
That's the Massachusetts Historical Commission.
Somebody-
They
So
have
they just
it.
exported it for you and.
But
Well, they-
somebody has to
I think
call
the
all that
town-
data together.
I think the town historic commission
They've-
gathered the data, but.
Well, that has to be registered as a historic property to be on that list, correct?
No.
Well, there's a couple of different
That's what I'm curious about.
categories that it gets. There are the properties that are registered with the National Register of Historic Places. There's ones that are flagged as preservation restrictions and ones that are just inventoried properties with the state. So
Right.
these are the ones that I believe get submitted to, is it Marcus, the Massachusetts registry? There's a Massachusetts Historical Commission online database that the Historic Commission has been really, really active in collecting information on these and submitting them to the state. I actually tried to get them to give me this inventory, and they were like, you just should go to the state, because we've given it all to them. So I actually, I can't say for sure, but I think a lot of this is their work from
That's fine.
collecting and
The
identifying.
local people, and then they sent it in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
I
other than
remember-
that, I can't figure out how they could get all that
Yeah,
stuff.
it makes
I
sense.
remember when that
Yeah.
took place, maybe 10 years ago
A lot
or
of
something
houses
like
that are
that.
on
your
there
house is
right
on
now.
there.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
there's got to be some qualifying process.
Well, that's exactly what I thought of.
Yeah, right. I mean, it just can't be,
Yeah.
hey, I like that house, it looks kind of old. let
Well,
me
they
put
have
it
to
on.
have,
Well,
You know?
there has to
right?
be
Well,
a,
there are land records. I would bet through the county and stuff, but there are probably records at to some level, right? Some age.
well, the thing that we have to remember about this is that there are different categories of historic significance that
Right.
they use, and some of these are just architecture. It's got a specific style that nobody builds anymore that has a historic
Interesting,
significance,
okay.
and that gets flagged. There's a lot of those. Some of them had some historic significance, like some of them were government structures. But I would say probably the vast majority of the ones on this list are ones that have just some architectural significance.
Right.
So, and that varies wildly, whether or not it's genuinely historic in the sense that it
Yeah.
has a story behind it versus something that
Lineage,
is
yeah.
just, my friend who's a professional historian, he always tries to draw the distinction between something that's historic and something that's old.
Yeah, right.
That's what I think we're hitting on, yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's
There's a
not,
mixture on there, it sounds like.
Yeah, so
I noticed that house at the end of Gilboa is on there. We wouldn't exactly call that historic or too architectural. Old, yes.
exactly. So, in the reason why we included this in the report is because
There.
Right.
Peter?
this was just, this selection came just out of conversations with that one group of people. And as we're going to move into the next phase, I think it's important to have all of the ones on this list so that we can incorporate this into a wider discussion with other groups of people to see, which ones would you add to this? Which ones, what do you think is valuable about it? What do we think you could actually do, this could actually add to the economic
Question
mix?
on these lists, I know you're gonna give them to us electronically. Can we publish these right now to get some of that feedback in real time? Is there a problem with that?
I don't believe so. I don't
So
think
literally,
so. It's
I
public
bet you a
information.
Website, right? That's
Yeah, all of this is on a public website, and
Okay.
this is the only one that I'm not 100% sure, but this came from a state agency.
The
so it's
reason I
gotta be
asked that
public
is
data.
if I actually did post that to Dynamic Douglas, I bet you people will look at it and they might either question or they might say, why isn't my place on there? And I
Yeah.
might
Or why
actually
is
get a
my
little,
place
or
on
why
there?
is my place
Yeah,
on
why-
there? So I actually might get a few corrections for you
No,
through that process. There were no copies on that right now. You can have this actually. This is the thing, we have copies on there.
Yeah, sorry,
That
this
stuff
was,
was all on that line
No,
that he
I
sent
meant
us.
that.
Oh, this one?
You can have mine, I made a copy of mine earlier.
yeah, there should be a problem with that. And as a matter of fact, one of the things that we were debating in the office was whether or not we should include an extra table on here that, so where we could put in notes so that we could potentially flag whether or not a parcel is something that we think could be used to
We'll have to mark
promote
it up
the
at some
town.
point, I think, to your
Yeah.
point. So,
Soldiers
yeah.
Field. Soldiers Field.
Soldiers.
The Red Sox and the Yankees played there. Do you have your
You guys
shirt?
selling this shirt? I was gonna say.
Do you have your
Just
shirt?
rolls out, it just comes out.
Well, she still has like 1,000 in her garage, so.
So, and obviously, this is a very comprehensive list, and this is gonna have to be pared down as part
Oh,
of the next phase,
sounds like it.
obviously. And the reason why I did them together is because I wanted this to be more of the starting point. We can look at this and see this is what we could do.
Well, you almost could say residential off, because that doesn't help economic development, I would think, and then you start looking at the things that are not. right?
Unless there's some sort of attractive
Draw.
value to it, some draw for it,
Okay.
You know-
It's like Amityville Horror House.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's something that if you
I grew up
think,
next to that.
if you think that's something that people might, or they do visit, or they might visit if it was properly advertised, then
Soldiers
we would
Field.
keep it on.
Soldiers Field.
There you go.
The Jake store, that's about it.
She'll work the booth, by the way.
Yeah,
Jake store.
me and Jake's store, that's about it. Other than that, I don't think we had anything.
I was gonna say, I don't know how much else
Great.
there is.
Well, Hiram Walker was bought here in town. Does that mean anything? We could all go over and have a drink?
And so the last thing that we did was the open space inventory. That's a relatively simple piece. We just looked at the open space layer, pulled the information on that, just to have it all in one place. There's definitely a lot of qualitative work that can go into this in the next phase, identifying the most active sites. We got a little bit of that in the discussions when we started, of seeing which the lakes and the parks that were the biggest draws in town. But we definitely could use a lot more qualitative work on that in phase two to see which ones are the best opportunities and how, like, really identify what's missing in town. Like, one of the things I talked about with Bill, actually, was we were talking at one point about whether or not there are any good lodging opportunities for people who want to go to the park and stay there and, come from out of state. And, so far,
But would you go and look into, as far as like Airbnb even, to see how many people in town are actually doing Airbnbs? Like, how far into a study would you go, I guess is my question on that.
the thing with the Airbnb, I would love to include that. I'm not 100% sure where I find that data, but.
I'd have to go on
would-
Airbnb and actually search
Yeah,
for all
other
the
than-
properties in Douglas that are listed.
Well, but they're not always, they're only listed if they're available. So we tried doing that with another town, and it turned out because it was the low point of the season, we really weren't getting a lot.
I was gonna say, we'd have to
hits, so-
choose a few dates out in the future and
Yeah.
just get a collect a list.
Yeah.
People in town are not gonna volunteer that they're doing this because they know the zoning will be in on them.
Oh, we can figure it out in a heartbeat to do
They
it.
just gotta keep their mouth shut. You're gonna say you're doing, I'm not doing that, no way.
I'll have it got on there.
There's that, and if they're not declaring the income on their taxes, that's another reason they.
Take your
would-
tax hat off. I'm with you.
I'm just, you know.
So we won't give you the list.
The reason, no, for lodging would be the commercial base. You get taxes from,
Yeah.
you know, that, and you can
Yep.
charge locality on
If you have hotels
commercial
and stuff,
Yeah,
yeah.
so,
Yeah.
you know,
And there's actually no good lodging options in the area if you actually do
No,
look
there
around the
really
surrounding
aren't, no.
towns. I mean, Uxbridge was the Quaker Inn thing.
Yeah, that's
That's like the
about
closest thing we have right now.
Yeah.
So,
Then you got the one up on 146 in Sutton.
but usually around lodging, you have to have things to attract people to want to stay around
Yeah.
that, and that's the trick.
Yeah.
Is the forest slash like Wallum enough to attract people to want to stay?
It'd probably be more campgrounds type of thing. Do we have any campgrounds in Douglas?
Right over the border, right here. Is
What
the
about,
Yeah.
what about Sanborn's? Is his in Sutton or is it in Douglas off of Oak Street?
You mean Paul Boudiette?
No, no. What are they going? Are they going to Manchog
Oh.
Campground now? Yeah, Sanborn.
yeah,
It used
I
to
know
be
who you're
Sanborn's.
talking
I'm saying
Yeah, no, I know who it is.
because I think you're in Douglas when you enter. but
Well, part of it, yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of
Is it
like
like down
on
the
Lake
entrance is
Manchog, on Lake Manchog.
Manchog,
there.
over here,
Yeah.
you're coming up off of Oak Street, and that's where you go in it. But I think once you get into it, I think you're then into.
But would the
Sutton.
campgrounds be considered lodging in your discussion?
Why not?
I mean,
It's
yeah,
not
I
a big
don't-
financial draw, that's why I asked that, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, when we were talking about it, we were thinking more about bed and breakfast or that kind of thing.
Okay.
But,
Yep.
you know, it's something that we could definitely consider, you know, where are the camping options in town? 'Cause I do believe, because the south part of the state forest attaches to a piece of management land in Rhode Island too, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it like the Buck Hill area or something like that? And I believe there's camping up there. I've never been up there.
In the Burrowville corner, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
there is.
I mean, campsites now, they get about $50 a night for a campsite, so they're not, you know,
Okay.
they're not, they bring in some money.
So all options we'll have to investigate.
Exactly. So the last piece that I wanted to talk to everybody about was we had some ideas about what the next steps were going to look like. There's two large pieces to or really three large pieces that we need to figure out what the timing is going to be on all three of them, depending on funding and our capacity. The first one is the community visioning. That's a very important piece. We were just talking about that, talking about the possibility of doing a survey with the general public, maybe doing some workshops. Definitely wanting to talk with business owners in some of these priority development areas that we flagged, and we'll continue to work on as part of this phase 2. And also talking to some of the people who buy and sell or work in that field of developing or selling commercial real estate. I think it's a piece that gets overlooked a lot.
isn't that what Hal does? Isn't Hal a real estate guy?
No, he's an attorney.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
thought he was a real estate attorney.
No, I don't believe so. Economic development.
He does economic development and stuff.
But you may have some contacts.
Yeah.
But it's a very, I think it could be an interesting piece. We were doing this for a housing plan in Leicester, and we just ended up talking to a bunch of real estate agents that have sold houses in that area, and
That's a good idea.
they had some really, really great insights into the market. And if we could do something similar for commercial brokers, that could be something.
I don't know if Douglas per se has any commercial native brokers, but we
Yeah.
probably, with the surrounding towns, we probably could find what we needed.
Yeah, I used to do some work for the Northeast Economic Developers Association, and I've been reaching out to them about seeing if they could
Okay.
be a potential resource.
I wonder if
we
somebody
could
like
get.
Cliff would have, obviously, connections into commercial.
Marty Green does a lot of commercial stuff. From
Yep,
Whitensville.
yep.
Marty?
Yep, I see his name on a lot of things.
And one of the things we did is I just got on, for the housing one, I just got on Zillow and found people who sold a bunch of
Agents.
houses
Oh,
in-
yeah.
in Leicester in the last 6 months and started cold calling them. And, you know, so if we had to do that.
Probably the easiest way also.
Yeah, we could get on LoopNet and find some agents and just start calling people if we had to. But I think that's an important piece that we should look at. The second piece that we were going to look at is the constraints analysis, and that's basically taking all of the properties that we know we want to develop, once we have an idea of the kinds of businesses you want there, and looking at what's potentially stopping it from developing. And really trying to focus on the pieces that the town has the ability to control. A lot of it ends up being things like marketing, and sometimes the town can help on that, sometimes it can't. But and it's good to know these things, but also really trying to look at is the zoning helpful? Is the permitting process helpful? How many people does a developer or even an entrepreneur have to get in touch with in order to open up a business? Things like that.
Yeah.
And then from that, the final piece would be actually developing the strategic action plan, developing the goals, developing the objectives, and then the individual actions that the
So
town
you'd be
is gonna
looking
pursue.
by, it looks like early 19-ish is when
Well-
we can begin the strategic action plan, possibly.
Yeah, well, no, that would actually be, that's the conservative estimate.
Oh, that is conservative, okay.
Yeah, so my hesitation was that if we end up having the money, we may end up being able to do it in 3 chunks over.
4 months, 4 months, 4 months.
Yeah, that's, I'd really like to be able to do that. That's really gonna depend on, the funding and the staff capacity at this point.
Right.
You said that was a January discussion for your executive committee?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So at the very, very least, I know that the constraints analysis and the community visioning piece will be able to do this year.
Is there anything we have to do to help plead our case or go through the process?
Well, when we do actually get the acknowledgement or the notice that the funding is available, they do ask that an application be submitted and then somebody go
Perfect.
to the committee to talk about it.
Mhm.
And, I'd be there to pitch and plead the case and,
Okay.
so, but it's, obviously nothing is guaranteed, but this is a project that's been on the radar for basically all year, so.
How do you go about figuring out what the constraints are? What's your methodology to get the information?
Well, we'll look first off at we'll look at the zoning and then compare it to other towns that have similar populations and similar business districts that may be doing a little bit better, or maybe they're doing a little bit worse, and see what they're doing. But part of it is just going to business owners and talking to them and asking them what has been their experience working with the town, where have they run into friction points. And then we'll talk to the town, the people who work in town, and find out from them what their processes are like. And from between all of that, we're able to glean where all of the friction points are that are causing difficulties for people trying to start a business or trying to develop a piece of property.
So you're not looking for physical constraints on individual properties then?
No,
No.
procedural, I think he's talking.
Yes, exactly.
Do you go all the way to NIMBY? Just checking.
We have a lot of those.
I know, that's what I
It's
wonder.
everywhere.
How do you signify that inside a constraints?
One of the things that proves successful for businesses, and, Matt and I had this conversation today, is we have a lot of good data here, and we probably have access to even more data if we know to look in the right places on the demographics, the population size, the needs of the community within the income range that we have, what services would suit that, what needs are there for that, what's with that salary range, average salary range, what service are they more likely to go to, and then therefore it's like a recipe for success for the business.
Do you bring in a Whole Foods, or do you bring in a whatever? Or do you go to Del Frisco's, or do you bring in a whatever, and all of a sudden you start understanding?
That's right.
Yeah.
So if we can clearly identify what services would be useful to the population,
Makes sense.
we could target marketing to that kind of service, and
We can work with the vendors or the actual businesses that provide those. And
right.
My question would be, basically, if you look, there has to be like a kind of, like I said, a recipe for success. So I would say, you obviously, you have the access to the data. It's just a matter of going and getting it and finding it and putting it together. But basically copying, other towns who have been in a situation where they've had to revitalize, and what is the percentage of, town, I guess, reinvestment that is necessary in order to get the ball rolling. You know what I mean? At a certain point, you need a certain amount of push.
Put something
So
up.
like down south, there's a town that, floated a couple $1 million bond, and they took this patch of land, basically that was a town that was nothing, and they built, gas lines, sewer lines, water lines, and they built everything throughout it, and then all the manufacturers came in because they built it. Well, obviously that's an extreme case, but the point I was trying to make is there a way to compare us to towns that, like maybe Sutton wasn't as, economically viable, strong as it was several years ago. So how much did they put? How did they do it? How much of their budget did they push towards, hey, we got to get out of this slump, maybe dig the hole a little deeper or dig in a little deeper just to get over the cusp, and then it'll, it's
Use some
down.
lessons learned from other towns that
Yeah.
have been through
I've
this.
got a feeling Sutton didn't expend anything.
Yeah, they got a lot of access on the
helped a lot.
146.
They got the
which-
access on the 146, and private
that's-
developers did it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
But
the
that's
water and
an
sewer,
example that we
everything
can cross
was
out,
brought
but
up
I think,
Yeah.
yeah.
was, none of it was expended by the town.
Well, and that's some of the stuff that we would research as part of the constraints, is we'd look at similar towns and find out what their experience was like. And we have so many towns that have, in our region, that we have relationships with that are
Yeah.
more than happy to answer our questions with a phone call and let us know what they did to do it, to boost a district. And you're right, one of the things is the investment question is a huge one that's hanging over so many towns. Whether or not to put in the money preemptively in order
Chicken before
to,
the egg, right? If you
Exactly.
don't have the income, then how are you gonna go spend it?
and especially if you have to do it with bond financing, that's or you have to, if
It's a
you can't.
risk.
Yeah, if you have to do it with debt, that's a huge risk.
When you talk to the residents, you'll hear that we need a market, we need not another convenience store, but a market.
That's part of the visioning, I think, of the survey, so besides what
Yeah.
Bill's hitting on, which is in a demographic area,
They'll give you
was
some
hear from the
input.
people, and
Yeah.
you mix the two, and then you probably pinpoint like 4 types of businesses.
A cleaner,
Kick off
maybe.
with.
And then you could reach out to, the real estate developers, get on the lists that the state has. There's a few organizations that I get mailings from. We have these needs, and, try and match up that way.
Well, and where the constraints ends up coming in too is that, once we say like, all right, we know we need a Whole Foods or we need a Market Basket in town, then we can look at the properties and we can say, okay, where's a good property? Well, we know this side is here. Oh, well, look, it's zoned for residential, so you can't put one there. But that's something that we can look as part of our strategy. The strategy is going to be, we need to rezone that. We need to do something with it to.
You can always.
And that's something we're actually talking with CMRPC about. The planning board just the other night authorized some RPA hours to be used to take a look at the zoning map. And, you guys should be aware of that too. So we're going to start doing that probably in the next couple of months.
Great.
Okay, good.
Well, based
So
on my
the-
Christmas shopping, Amazon could probably open a warehouse in Douglas.
Mine too.
So,
Yeah. Where is there any place
So do
else
you
to shop?
Do you have contacts with companies to basically, get their plans? So what are you looking for in a site? Or
That's not something that we have access to.
So I actually, through somebody else, learned of access for that, which is apparently 2 to 3 times per year, there are these event shows, Boston, Javits Center, that literally all of these companies were joking about, Whole Foods and Amazon and whatnot. They literally go into these real estate events, and you either hold your own booth there. I learned this from a friend, a commercial developer, and you can basically say, "Hey, I'm here," and everybody walks around, the sales guys and the real estate guys, or you literally go around to them and say, "Hey, here's the availability I have in this town. Here's our demographics. Here's the why," and just sell them on it. So there's a Boston event that usually happens every spring. I think it was mid to late spring. That might cost like $150 or $200 to like get into or something like that for us. But those are the types of things I
That'd be
learned.
worth
Is
going
that's
into.
the only place these deals usually happen, besides like really hardcore cold calling. But
Yeah.
you have to be in these events to actually get the attention of most of the big boxes and all the other places. So I had through a friend that actually the guy that built the Blackstone shops at Blackstone and the Worcester, the North Smithfield one with Lowe's and all that.
Oh, yeah.
He's the same one that did that, and he did the Price Chopper actually up on Sutton. Market 32. So he's been teaching me about what to do when the time is ready. I don't have any. We talked about this actually. I think it was like 6 months ago, but we didn't have the information and the
Yeah.
background. So
Yeah.
I think if we can get through this through my connection, I might be able to get us the know-how of at least where to go.
Oh, nice.
Back to I think your question that you're
Yeah.
getting to. So.
Well, and there's another avenue that we're exploring. There's a company that we've worked with that's done some pro bono work for us last year that is one of those big data companies, and what their main bread and butter is doing data analysis on for site selection for big companies like the ones you're talking about. The one they kept mentioning was Buffalo Wild Wings in their demo. I don't know why, but that's what they kept saying. But
They got one in North Smithfield.
yeah, but they talked about they work with a lot of the largest like supermarkets and things like that. And so we're working to see if we can try to figure out a way to get access to some of the information that they've got, because they've got some very interesting stuff. But most of it is proprietary, so it's not the kind of thing that we can.
You
it's
pay them
modeled.
for and give them the data, and they'll probably run it through the system. But
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, they take publicly available information, but they model it in a way that I just don't have. The
you will
skill
make
set
this
to do.
much money if you go here for this reason. Go.
Yeah, we did. They did a leakage analysis for us for a couple of towns that we did this year that were pretty interesting. They basically took a 15-minute drive time around a central point and looked at all of the money that was spent and all of the money that how much was spent and where it was spent, and they came up with a calculation to estimate how much it was captured in town versus outside of town.
So interestingly, every time I cold call another company, because I've talked to everybody from Trader Joe's to CVS, just to start to try to get some insight. I have one that's a live one sort of right now, which is Cumberland Farms. The two questions that they asked me up front, besides what property is available, is what are the demographics of the town, which I can pull those pretty easily.
Yeah.
And then what are the traffic patterns, not traffic patterns, what's the traffic frequency, whatever they called it.
Volume.
For the volume for that location. And I said, I don't have that. I don't know how to get that besides putting the hose in the
I have
ground. And
We have
you
some
have
of
that
that.
for multiple
Yeah,
areas?
we do.
Awesome.
CMRPC.
Yeah, we have
Okay.
that data.
Now I know that we have it, so I can actually respond to the guy, because that was one of the things I'll bring up later, is Cumberland
that's
Farms
something-
wants that right now.
I
So-
have to see when the last update was, but they do traffic counts almost every year, and I think we're done this year. So
You just sent it out maybe a month ago.
okay, yeah.
Oh, awesome, so we, then.
Yeah, it's not my
Side note,
department.
I
No,
need
it's
a copy
it's
of
a
that.
local area, but annually they solicit the town for feedback on where we want to have a count. So usually it goes to the selectmen, and then they
They
you know,
decide.
I make a recommendation, and then they go to a particular location.
Do you know where we just did it by chance?
Yeah, it was at the intersection of Route 16 and Mechanic Street.
So that was back over by Middletown.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was the last one.
Anything over in
that
the
was-
corner of Gilboa Street where
That's where I was actually gonna add that.
Yeah,
was-
that's around 8,000 vehicles per day is my recollection, 8,500.
Anything out down 16?
That's more like 16,000, yeah.
Oh, that's even higher.
coming up 16?
Wow. I would have thought it was actually higher.
That might be in this end of 16.
Yeah, so I was
right.
curious.
Oh, okay,
So
when they
they
all
s-
start
I don't know
feeding
that
into
we've
it.
ever
Yeah.
gotten anything down this
So they
far.
start to feed in through here and they're
Usually
feeding
it's
from there.
focused
They
here,
split.
this way, yeah.
So at some
So you
point,
get those three kind of converging.
at some point, I think this area, if we want to build that up, we'll probably need that data. I'm
Right,
assuming for over there.
Right.
Now, in constraints, you take laws into effect?
Yes.
Well,
Yeah, so we would look at,
Massachusetts and local laws as far as maybe tax breaks, stuff like that for certain industries,
yeah.
and make recommendations on what you could change.
So as far as the state law goes, we do take a look at it. We mostly would focus in on incentives and things that are available for the town to use, mostly because there's a lot of laws that it would be great if they were changed, but it's
What
not something
phase
the
do you do
town has
that
to
in?
write.
Was it envisioning or constraints or planning?
That'd be part of the, well, we'd do the data collection and constraints, but it would also feed into the strategic action
planning,
plan. Because one of the things we need to look at with the strategic plan is the potential for funding and for any incentives to make them actionable. Because you really don't want to create an action plan that you can't implement.
Right.
So there's enrolled into the strategic action plan is an implementation plan that would include the actual steps that you would be able to take in order to get all of it done. So,
We have a history of giving out tips as an incentive for business. And we'll give out more if we have to.
Awesome. So it sounds like next steps for you are you got to wait till your meeting is scheduled for whenever in January. And from that, I'm assuming we'll hear back from you specifically around, do we need to come in and actually have the next discussion if we're
Yeah.
viable for the
so the
financing?
one open question is that we have to, still waiting to hear back on, is whether or not the meeting in January is one where we're going to be talking about new projects, or if it's one in which they're going to be wrapping up.
Closing.
Yeah, closing out this year's. I have a feeling it's going to be closing out this year's projects, but, if it is,
That pushes us to February at that point.
probably, yeah. So
That's fine.
They meet once a month?
generally, they'll meet once a month unless they get called for a special purpose, but they usually only meet once a month. Last year, they didn't actually end up doing this until March, but that was the state's fault, so.
So when you look at, I'm sorry, I came in late, but
Oh, no problem.
when you look at, our percentage of change in median household income, do you look at it as because of the industry they work in, or the majority of the town works in? I was looking at the breakdowns, that's why we, versus these other towns, what the majority of their workforce is in, why we went down 1% in median household income, or is it some other factor that's causing, the median household income to go down?
Well, just by looking at the data that was collected in this, it's a little difficult to tell why that is, because there are factors that seem like they may contradict each other. Like, for instance, the income went down, but the number of the unemployment rate went down too.
Right.
So there's more people working, and it may end up being something as simple as you've added a lot of people who are earning less money into the workforce. So it brought down the median household income a little bit, because those people currently, before that, they weren't working, they weren't earning anything.
Right.
So it could be something as simple as that, but it's really hard to glean just from that kind of data. I think the part of the next phase is we'll try to get a little bit more nuanced data that we can feed into this, that we can build off this, and see if we can get a clearer picture of some of those patterns.
Okay.
So do you put landscaping and construction or other services? Or professional services? Or do you know where it lands?
I'm sorry, I'm not following you. What do you mean?
Landscaping, which industry do you put it in?
That I'm not 100% sure about, because this data came from the federal government. So because this came from the ACS, I'm not sure how they broke that out, and their categorizing is,
Would they use along the lines of NIACS codes?
they do, yeah.
So that's what these would be? Okay, so I know where it lands.
Okay.
So I know CMRPC's involved in traffic flow and analysis. Does that come into effect, something like this, where it might be a hindrance to business because we've got inadequate travel area or travel capability?
It definitely can. We don't always take a look at that, but if that's something that the town would like us to take a look at, we definitely can do that. But of course, as we were saying earlier, we don't, there isn't data collected on all the streets, so we can look at some of the streets that are near the priority development areas that we do have data for, and we can get a sense of that, but for other ones, we would end up having to sort of speculate or guesstimate of how much the traffic.
We have
impact
some
would be.
other sources of data, it might be a few years old, but it'll give you a flavor of what the flow patterns were. Beta did a study a number of years back for the town, and they did some pretty good counts, primarily along Route 16, but again, this is probably going back maybe 10 years.
I'm just thinking downtown here, it's Route 16, but it's pretty
It
narrow,
squeezes in.
you know?
Yeah.
Is the question of how do people split off when they go towards Webster, or how do they split off towards the other area? That's the key.
Right. Have you ever looked at, maybe moving in a road, putting in a road for, more direct access to certain areas? Or is that just way too big for us to even look at.
I would say it's way too big.
You have to own a lot of property.
It's the property ownership
Yeah.
becomes the issue, and, you know, you'd have takings.
I'm just wondering if you've ever even thought about where you would or how you would do it if we ever suddenly became flush with cash and we wanted to, if you even,
The only thing I've heard about is using the trunk line trail
Right. That they
as
talked
as a
about that,
bypass.
that years ago.
Yep,
using
that's
the trunk
probably
line trail.
20 years ago or
It looked big
something
more than
like
that,
that.
now, Paul.
Yeah, but it,
Yeah, and
Everybody
that's
said
not gonna
no.
happen now because now it's all a
All
trail.
residential
Right.
trail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The tree huggers would be over there having a bird.
So I just had a quick question here. This one that you flagged as RL1, what is,
It's commercial land, I mean, we've got a number of frontage pieces, and again, I'm looking at this
Cemetery's over
because.
there, right?
It is. I'm looking at that primarily because it's commercially zoned, residential commercial, and it's got frontage on Route 16, and it's town-controlled. So you've got a number of things.
Where's
The
that?
ice cream
This is where the VFW is.
Oh, yes.
Okay,
right by my house.
yeah,
the soccer field.
RC1.
right, right.
RC1 south of Route 16, and it's
Right.
rural residential.
Is it connected to both Southeast and 16 or just 16?
The town owns it's basically the big, large piece of property
That big
there.
thing
It's
there.
all
Yeah.
great sand and gravel.
Yeah.
There is
Water and
some,
sewer
it's in
that go
the,
right.
Aquifer.
it's in the aquifer district, and it's got a perennial stream that flows
Right.
through it. So there's some constraints,
Yep.
but there could be an opportunity. You got the soccer field. I mean, there's opportunities, I think, over there if we get the right kind of mix.
Well, you would
going
need to expand the sewer and water, wouldn't you, to go that far?
on. Water goes by
Water
there,
goes
but again, sewer, it's sand.
Any
It's-
septic in that area?
You could theoretically do a septic. But I'm more thinking about the frontage pieces. We just acquired that other house. The VFW building is kind of like a
With the house right in front
liability.
of it? On 16 you're talking about? Yeah. Okay.
I think what you would find that it'd be depend upon what was going there, because now you're getting right into the heart of, you know, where the common is and the cemetery.
But that's not a bad thing,
It's
depending on
prob-
what we're there. It actually might be a good thing if you're actually turning that back. That used to be the center of Douglas.
I'm just looking at the zoning, Carol,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah.
and to not at least discuss it, I think,
Right.
wouldn't be
I mean,
good.
I'm
But you have
all
to,
for-
you definitely have to widen that road.
Right.
The other thing too, have we closed yet on the mobile pipeline?
Yeah, tomorrow we might be signing some stuff.
So, but we got 10 years before we can do anything with it? Is that, get some type of
An
a
extension.
constraint on
I
us?
don't know the details.
Because that's the one that's got 12,000 cars going by a day, isn't it?
That's zone, is that zone commercial? I think that's residential.
Where is that? And
It's right here.
it's that one. Okay.
That might be something that should be rezoned.
Right.
And this might be a great time to get it rezoned while the town owns it. Because people wouldn't be too
right off of
concerned that
16.
anything was going to happen with it.
Whose approval does that need? Just yours or the
No, no,
board?
Well,
it's
it'll
a
go to
town.
planning board, and then it
Planning
goes
board.
town
It
meeting.
was town meeting,
Oh,
yeah.
And there's
Need
GBI in front of that?
No, GBI is at the
Or my
top of the
office.
hill, they're right up here.
So it's past GBI down the hill.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Okay.
You'll
Yeah.
see like a pump station and some
Yes.
fenced
Yeah,
in
yeah, I know
area.
exactly what you're talking
Yeah.
So what is it called, 50 acres or something? It's a pretty good size.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a good size. It's gotta
Yeah.
be 50 acres. It goes all the way back to Rydell Road.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
So then you have between these two, it'll be an interesting kind of combination with some middle of the town potential. We always
A market
focus on
and
the
pharmacy,
outsides.
that's what we want.
Market and the pharmacy.
You put them in the pharmacy.
I was gonna say, yeah, you only need one now.
Yeah, we-
So, I mean, there might be an opportunity for something there. That's all. That's why
I
I
think it's
circled it.
not immediate, but
I don't
It's
know.
restrictive, but we'd have to
it'd be
deal with
something we
it.
might
Hey,
want
and
to
it-
think of rezoning at this point in time.
Yeah.
You're talking about, you're back on the mobile thing.
I am back
Yeah,
on
no,
that.
he's on-
You betcha.
Oh,
He's
both,
on that
both. Yeah, we'd have to first rezone this before we can take it seriously
Yeah.
and have it
How do we
passed.
begin that process?
The board here would make a recommendation to the planning board to take a look at it and, you know,
Okay.
you take it from there.
well,
How do we
if,
do that?
if we
Do we
want
have
to
I would
any
probably-
maps?
I would
What are
probably
zoning
talk
maps? Do we have any here? We must have one here.
And we'd want to bring the planning board in probably also to discuss that
Well, see, I
before we
didn't-
actually
I
go
didn't
forward.
Plus, I'm
include a
also
planning-
sick of driving
It's a zoning
15 to
map in
20
here,
minutes
because I assumed you guys
to
had
Webster or
we've got
Smithfield or
That's what I
North
thought.
Smithfield to go to a hardware store.
Koopmans.
But if you
That's
think,
true.
if you got that many cars going by it,
Trust me, my wife knows I go to Koopmans like every other day.
I go between Uxbridge, depending on where I am, Uxbridge or Whitensville.
I tend to go to the Uxbridge summer off 16.
Yeah.
Well, and this is one of the, I didn't write it down on the recommendations, but honestly, the very first step I would want to do once we've scoped this out and we know what the project is going to be, would be to kind of go through this exercise that we're doing right now, where we can identify all the sites that we
Understood.
want to add to this priority development area.
You
And
asked.
that can end up,
By the way, why don't we get a Koopmans in here? We support them now.
1 inch equals 1 inch.
oh wow.
So, 1 inch equals 1 inch. 16,
So it's RC,
so what's, it's yellow?
This big thing right here is the
Yellow,
big
what
problem.
is it?
VR.
And this thing.
VR?
It's this,
Oh, it's already.
That's all VR?
that's all VR, can you believe that?
That's.
What's the red?
VR.
That's commercial.
Yeah,
Well,
VR.
then,
So we have
one
it.
worth
It almost
moving that
extends.
line
Hey, the
over.
corner.
I mean, what?
How's that look?
Where's Paul live?
He's red.
I'm right up here.
Oh,
He's
okay.
yellow.
Yeah.
Take
I
Paul's
thought you were
property,
down
too.
here, we could say, surround Paul.
Seriously.
Seriously.
It'll be the little dot, yellow dot. you
Yeah,
know?
an island of yellow.
Move this whole thing right back in through here.
Well, that's the dump, right? Right here.
It is.
Yeah.
So you're back. That's why you're just on the back side of the dump.
Stations right here.
If we're gonna move it right
So-
there, why don't we just move it?
Well, yeah.
No, it's
Don't push your luck, okay?
it's an unused area at this point.
Usually,
Owned
see,
by the
when you
town.
do the rezoning, you know, you have to be cognizant of the fact when property owners are impacted by the zoning change.
Right.
Right.
And they may not support it, and that's pretty detrimental at the town meeting. But if the town controls that piece, that gets rezoned.
You're not saying to zone everything, just this
Right,
one
right.
spot.
Right, we wouldn't have to rezone the front unless you go like
That's a
to like
huge
an RC2, and then that really wouldn't affect them at all. Because it's tough when you change the zoning on someone and then they become pre-existing, non-conforming.
Now, would you
Yes,
go
and-
commercial or
They wanna put on a
industrial on
deck,
that
They want
also?
to put on an addition, and they have to
Right.
go through a lot of
Would you go
aggravation.
commercial or industrial on that?
It seems
I
like
thought
commercial
I
would be
would attach
the
to the
logic.
commercial and
the
Yeah.
logic
Extend the
thing.
Because you're saying,
Industrial is,
you're saying you got 12,000
You're
people
Who owns
today
this?
going up the road.
What's this little yellow thing right there?
that's the town of Douglas.
Town of Douglas, that's the landfill parcel.
Oh, okay, so that's the landfill, and then next to it's the open spot. Got it.
So what is the, I don't know, so what's the mobile gas line area? Is it just the rights to that land? Or
No, we're acquiring the property
from,
from Mobile.
okay. So they currently have the,
Rights to
They
it.
used to
Right,
have a
so-
pump station there years
Okay.
ago, but I don't think they have used it.
Yeah, the pipelines like intersect, they may even
That's a
be
huge
shown here.
parcel.
See
Yeah,
the
the pipeline
there?
might go through
Oh,
it,
okay.
yeah.
Okay,
So-
so there's a big pump station there. and-
Yeah.
So what do we, so let me ask, the next step on this would be to pull the planning board into a conversation here with EDC?
The board would take a vote to recommend that the planning board take a look at, you know, give them some kind of concept of what you're thinking about.
Okay.
And, you know, see if they want to move forward to town meeting on a rezoning article.
Do you think we should wait until we actually own it?
Probably.
When did you say we're closing on it?
I believe tomorrow
Oh,
papers
okay.
are.
So
being
January,
signed
we
You
can
don't
see
know.
this in January,
Yeah.
that's fine. We'll give it a few weeks.
I think we wait until we own it, then I think that's what we should
Yeah.
recommend.
We got about 3 weeks left.
Yeah, we should have some
And
suggestions
you might
as
want
to
to
what.
just run
what
it by
would-
Bob Sullivan,
What kind of business
see what he
you want.
thinks.
Right, right. Yeah, I'll talk to Bob. I got to order with
Is there
Bob.
any remediation that you have to worry about on that parcel?
I'm sure there's provisions in the PNS that address that. I'm not sure. I have not been
Wait,
involved.
this actually has frontage on 16
Yeah, it has to
and
be-
Rydell Road. That's huge. And that's a good sized frontage also.
Well, I do know that one of the things that the water department is concerned because they have their wells close to it. And they
Correct.
don't want to have any
That's fine.
contamination of their wells.
That's a
But-
50,
But,
that's a
but
50
that's
acre
in the
property.
aquifer, Carol, so,
Right.
so any kind
That's
of
good.
non-compatible use would be regulated under a DEP Zone 2.
Right, right. And then the other thing too is like, if you rezone something that the town owns, then we can decide who we want to sell it to.
I was just
or
gonna say,
what
we
want
own it
done
then.
there. There's no zoning like owning,
Right.
you know?
I could literally go to somebody and
It's like
say,
a
hey,
brain
we
cell,
own it,
but-
yeah, okay, and here's what it's owned at, and then it's
But,
not like we have to go
You know,
negotiate with this guy,
obviously,
and
you know,
Yeah, could be
everybody in
used-
town wants to keep the wells clean.
that could be a lot of things.
It
so-
could be used for town purposes also, other than business. I mean, not that I'm pushing for that, but the town could use it for a.
You want to reclose, we can relocate the transfer station and then use the transfer station.
But when,
Is it wet? It's not wet.
There's wet areas, yeah,
There's
there's
wet
topography,
areas.
it goes
Everywhere.
down,
You know,
yeah.
when Matt was talking about potentially putting in, you know, gas pumps to save us money.
no, that wouldn't be there.
You
No,
couldn't, you
that'd
can't
be in
put
the
that.
aquifer, so that would be
there.
one of the things I was telling Carol.
No,
Could that be over
Zone
here?
two.
that would
No.
definitely not be there.
Yeah, I
No.
think the sewers only come up to,
Yeah, because they were
Richard
looking at
Preston's
properties
house.
and
Right.
where the heck can we put it? I said, why don't you put it by the fire station? We
Half a
can't.
mile.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, but there's enough property there that depending on the size of it, you can technically do some type of a septic or whatever a commercial grade thing would be.
yeah, you could probably do that.
Yeah, well,
Bill, do you guys, does the town have an up-to-date sewer map that you know of?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Bob is actually working on it actively,
Okay.
putting it into GIS.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
'Cause
We have a layer that's not 100% accurate that CMRPC did under
Yeah.
RPA hours, so it was kind of like based on
Okay.
a mishmash of
Exactly,
information
yeah,
that
that's
we
the
had.
data, that's the layer that we've
And,
got.
but our water and sewer department is getting a lot more specific and detailed
Oh,
than what we
good.
have, yeah.
Would you be able to share that when it's complete?
I'm sure it's public info.
see that
if
right
you-
there? That's where I live.
I'm not doing it, they're doing it down there.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, okay. Because that's one of the things we
Yeah, that's
found
good.
with a lot of the projects we're working on, is that's one of the
Presentation
layers
like
that's usually
Yeah, I seem to be
has an
arrow
accuracy
somewhere.
system,
Yes.
the water and
Yeah.
sewer.
Oh, you don't?
Yeah, we just sent
Such a big
our
piece.
paper maps up to you guys, and those things were
Yeah.
probably outdated, at the
Yeah.
time.
Okay, so it sounds like now we actually have our own thing coming out of this discussion, which
Yeah.
is awesome. This whole back end thing, that's I think a little bit more of a discussion than even this one would be. This is almost just a conversion through planning / the town. This one's probably a use
Now, what
discussion
is
of
it,
what we
this
can
is
actually use
zoned
it
as what?
RC1, residential,
Oh,
commercial.
okay, so there's
for.
RC.
But it's also in the aquifer, you said?
It is in the aquifer
So it's-
district, yes.
We'd have to be a little sensitive to what we could put there.
And how much of that parcel is wetlands?
That's gonna be self-regulating. I mean, the DEP is gonna allow things or not allow things.
Toxic waste dump?
Yeah. Well, I don't usually, I remember they relied on the DEP too when they wanted to put that big dump up there. You think, well, they'll regulate it. Now, all of a sudden the dump's coming in. So, I don't know if I trust them on everything.
So which is the property that you actually bought? Which house in front of this one?
Well, this is the cemetery.
Right.
Yeah.
This is the access to the soccer field.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's
This
the
is
little
where the
house right
house is, the VFW's right here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, but then the property wraps around all that,
Yeah.
so.
And then all of this
Yeah,
is
the
little
town of Douglas
streams and
owns all
stuff.
this. I actually own this little piece right here.
You own that piece there? Yeah.
And
You're all
my-
over the place,
My son
Paul.
owns this
So that means that you'll sell that to the town
Probably would.
for like $1 million, but. Okay, good. We have a few takeaways then.
All right, great.
This has been very helpful for me.
Good.
All
So,
right, so I will.
So we're waiting on to hear back from you then.
Exactly. As soon as I find out what the next step is going to be as far as applying for the next round of DLTA money, the technical assistance money, I will be in touch and we'll start working on a proposal and get that in as soon as possible.
can you touch base with Chris Ryan, because he's involved in the rezoning RPA hours thing,
Yeah.
so. And that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ron.
So it sounds like action item for next meeting then will be to follow up with, we'll follow up to make sure that the site closed and then we can discuss
Yeah, I'll
bringing
talk to
proposal
Bob
forward.
Sullivan, see, he might come up with some ideas that we haven't thought about. Reasons for not to do this.
You guys want these?
We'll be dead to hold on to them.
Yeah, okay.
Sure.
Sure.
And actually, one thing, as a side note, as I mentioned, I reached out to Cumberland Farms because I heard about they're trying to move their, this next to Koopman's, the Route 16 Cumbies. They're
Yes.
basically, we're trying to move that up 122 up to Hannaford's, and they've been getting denied by Uxbridge,
Oh, are they?
apparently. Something about they don't want them to move up to that location and zoning or whatever it is.
Right.
So I reached out to them off of somebody's tip, I think it was yours, and I've been talking to their real estate person who asked me for what are potential sites. So I actually put out there, some over here, obviously the corner of North Street and Gilboa.
I would love to talk to them.
And
I'm
so-
available during the day.
I will do
whatever.
that. So
We
he
can
asked
go
me for
over
some
with
basic
maps.
info, and now that I know you actually have all that, I'm gonna send them your way.
Okay, great. Sounds
So-
good.
Because that would be, they're trying to build those new Cumberland farms, you know, the really big, nice ones. that-
Yeah,
So the only thing.
not a gas station though,
It
right?
would be a gas station.
Oh, it's a gas station.
Okay. Well, that limits the locations, but yeah.
No, and that's
Is that
why
on
I had,
aquifer There too?
well, I put it
Is
on
that
here,
aquifer too? there?
Over here, no.
No,
here or up here.
up there is
The
it?
corner, Heaney's
the-
property,
Heaney's property,
corner of North Street and Gilboa.
yeah, we have traffic data. It was pulled out of our local watershed resource
Yeah.
protection overlay district a few years ago
Yeah.
at town meeting. It is not under the DEP zone
Right,
2
right.
because it doesn't contribute to a public water supply.
Right.
So
Okay.
it meets the soil criteria to be considered an aquifer. So
Yeah.
those are the
Okay,
things.
so and that's where I need your help.
But
So,
that
okay,
doesn't,
right.
but that wouldn't
That's why I had to give you
necessarily
the big,
stop
long
it.
explanation.
No, that's totally fine.
But that wouldn't necessarily
It
stop
wouldn't stop it, that's
Right.
correct.
And I was thinking traffic-wise, those are probably our two better spots besides somewhere out in 16, which didn't feel right.
I'm willing to bet you there's more traffic that goes up that road
That's
than
what I
there
was
is at
thinking.
that
That has to
section.
be the
Do
main
we have
traffic one.
anything on this?
I'm sure
area?
we do. If not down here, it would be up here where
Yeah.
Northeast Main Street is.
Of course, once it starts, they come in like through, you are, at night, when I try to go home, I'm getting up here, I'm backed up all the way down North Street
Yeah, oh no, it's
now.
busy over here. That gets
Yeah.
busy in that area.
Yep. a lot of
The
people
only
come off
impact
of
is actually on the
146.
Sitco in
Yeah.
the middle of town, then we have to do an analysis to say, do we shut down the Sitco in the middle of town, basically because of that going in there. So there's a little impact analysis we'd want to understand, so. But, okay, I'll put you in
All right,
touch.
guys. Thank you.
you.
Have a good night.
Yeah, we're getting a lot more traffic. It seems down 16
Oh, yeah.
trucks, 4:30 in the morning.
Oh,
they
yeah,
start.
really?
5 o'clock.
You probably get the commercial traffic coming that way, because this is a commercial coming off 395, it's a shortcut straight through
Yeah.
to
A lot
of commuters.
146.
That is, yeah. And,
A
oh,
lot
yeah,
of
the
people are on the road driving cars at
Oh,
5
yeah.
o'clock in the morning.
Well, you know
Can't
why?
believe
This,
it.
I think, my son-in-law, he does work in different places. When he's going out, like towards Bill Ricker or anything, he leaves at 4 o'clock in the morning, he's still hitting traffic.
So one of the things, that, if you guys are okay with this, I would like to propose posting, and since we have it in a soft
Sure, why
copy,
not?
up on our Douglas Economic Development Facebook page
Yeah,
and the
that'd be
website,
great.
both of them.
I think it's a good idea, let people look at it.
Just put a little blurb by it and say, hey, here's a study that was funded by the town/EDC, and here's
It's-
the first output.
I think funded by the state, DLTA.
Was it the state?
It's DLTA.
We didn't pay for it?
State funds, right?
That
Okay.
went to special town meeting, didn't we vote on?
I thought we put some funding into this one.
I thought we did too, I'm not sure.
Yeah, at the special
Well,
town
maybe you don't
meeting.
have to say who
I
funded
won't say who funded it.
Let's
It's
just
not,
leave it
It was run by
That's
CMRPC
it.
in conjunction with the town.
it. Right, that's.
And the EDC,
Yeah.
and here's the first pass of a possible potential multi-plan,
Right.
multi-phase plan.
Right, that's the best way.
Right, the DLTA
You don't
funds,
wanna
which is what.
misspeak.
Kenny had.
Yeah, exactly. So
Uh,
I'll put that out
state.
there. I'll find the right wording for it, and I think
Right.
maybe over the weekend I'll post that out, because I think it'll be good to start to show that, hey guys, there's something potentially. Plus, if we are gonna survey people, the more the information we can get out there now,
Right.
maybe we can get their heads moving in the activity area better, so.
So you want to make a motion to do that?
Sure, I'll like to make a motion to, if I can post it on Facebook.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
I
Awesome.
That dynamic Douglas, now, when, I've never actually been a member of it, because I don't like to join any of that stuff. Like every time
It's a
I,
closed
like
group.
but if I posted a picture of myself with my grandkids, would it go on there?
No, you don't see it in a closed group like that. Only your
Oh.
friends will see it.
That's what I don't.
If you post it into the group, they will see
Oh,
it.
okay.
But if you just
have
post it to
to
your
actually-
wall,
You actually have to take,
you're not a
do
friend with
another-
everybody in the group. No,
oh, that's good to know.
that would be really bad.
I kind of stay away from it, although I do have a Facebook page.
No, I
Yeah.
think we're up to
I
like
get-
3,000 or 4,000 people in that group. It's actually a pretty large
Yeah,
group.
I'd like to go in and,
I mean,
see what
Dennis,
people have
what's
to
Dennis's
say.
last name?
Bishop,
Thank you.
Yeah.
So he's in there posting all the new tax things and putting all the PDF things.
Oh, yeah,
and
see, I haven't gotten any of
so
that.
all that's in there, like literally you can see the entire tax output he updated in there, and there's a bunch of stuff in there. So it's a good group to join. And you listen to all the local animals that get lost and,
We'll have to join.
and everything else.
Oh, yeah. I for somehow I get it from Sutton, and everybody's
You have
cats.
to join it.
Everybody's cats disappear because the coyotes
that's
eat them.
half of the traffic is actually pets that have been lost or something. So
Never to be seen again. But
Hunting laws need to change on coyotes.
they do.
that's
What is the laws on hunting coyotes?
can't, I think.
You can, there's no bag limit, but you still need to get a license.
License.
But you can't use artificial light at night.
Yeah.
So it's sunrise to sunset, and at night, you can only use a 22. So it's like, wait, you're not gonna let me use artificial light?
Yeah.
And you want me to use a bullet that I have to get a perfect shot in order to
Night
take
vision
down
goggles?
something the size
Yeah.
of a coyote?
Yeah.
And then you can only use.
Is there a certain
You can only
season
use a
for it, too?
shotgun
Yeah.
during deer season. So
Wow.
even though you're not hunting deer with it, you
Yeah.
can, by Massachusetts hunting regulation, you can only use a shotgun in the little time between deer season. You can only use a bow and arrow during bow and arrow season. But you can use pistols and centerfire rifles up to. I don't know what the restriction is on size of,
Yeah.
but you can use rifles.
Are you allowed to hunt year round?
No, there is a coyote season.
Oh, okay.
But it's pretty big.
Yeah.
But like I said, there's no bag limit, so as long as you're 500 feet away from a dwelling on permissioned
That's
property,
standard. Yeah.
you can go ahead and
But
kill
it-
as many of them as
But
you
it has to
want.
be during the coyote season.
It has to be during the coyote season, and really, you would want to use a shotgun.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be humane to take the thing with a 22, so.
I'll tell you, the other night, I had the TV on, I was watching TV, and I heard these weird noises. I said, well,
It sounds like a
sometimes-
baby yelling,
Sometimes there's
kinda.
something in the background, on the TV. So I said, I shut the sound off, and I could still hear it. I'm going,
Uh-oh.
what is this? And I went by the windows, it was coyotes howling.
After the snowstorm, this 4 or 5 inch snowstorm
Yeah,
we had,
yeah.
the next day and the day
Yeah.
after, all the footprints coming right up
Oh,
to the
yeah.
house. And
Coyotes?
it's deer, mostly
Oh, no, deer.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
deer.
I have
And I
deer. I
never
live
see
on my
any
property.
deer, but they're all over the place.
I got 12 acres.
Looking at the
They like
windows.
huddle on the property because it's posted, so they know like we're safe.
My
We're not
brother
leaving.
says up there, he's been working in the pit up there. He said every day he goes up there because he's changed, he's regraded and everything.
What about the old
They just loaded
Percy
with it.
property? What are they?
Well, she's got the
That used to be with the stone yard and stuff.
yeah, but she's got all the solar things there.
Oh, she did a solar
Yeah,
yard.
yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
she's got
that.
solar-
Okay.
and
I don't drive
that's
by much.
and she is right on top of the wells.
I know
She's right on top
Oh,
of
you
them.
couldn't
So
do much
there's
there.
not a lot that she could do there. So that was a good fit
property.
for that. She's getting an income and property's
She's right
being used.
there, I think.
Yeah,
Her
yeah,
property across the street, though, that she sold,
yeah.
has had a lot of people standing over in the fields a few times.
Well,
I'm not quite sure what's going
I
on.
think they paid $700,000 for that parcel. Nothing's been done with it.
But they're looking at doing something, I
Yeah.
think. I mean, there were people
Well,
over there with
again,
suits
it's
on.
because there's all that traffic.
Yeah,
They know how much cars are going by there too.
so I don't know what's
Well, yeah.
happening.
So, any other topics anybody wants to bring up?
Well,
I
guess-
told you the Cumberland Farms one, so
Yeah.
I'll follow the bill.
Yeah, I guess we need to consider this after the sale is made.
I was gonna say I don't think there's much to consider. I think we just put the motion in place
Well, I
next
think
meeting.
I really do think we should talk to the water department.
Well, so yes,
Yeah.
you're gonna follow up.
Yeah,
So
I'll
hopefully
talk to
between now and the next meeting, which
Yeah.
when is the next meeting officially? The first is a Sunday, right? Yep, first is a Sunday,
First Tuesday of January.
which is the 3rd, technically for us. Is
Okay.
everybody gonna be around for the 3rd of January?
I hope so. Who
I should
knows?
be.
Just checking. I wanna make sure you guys are good.
At this point in my life,
But if
yeah.
I get a
hope so.
chance to go to Florida, I'm going.
Thanks. Okay.
My
so-
son-in-law said, "You want to hop in the motorhome with me?" I'm going.
Okay, 3rd of January, so I'll just make sure that with Christine, that the agenda's in for that. And it sounds like at that one, hopefully you'll have a discussion with Bob
Second.
before. Is it the 2nd of Tuesday?
Seconds at Tuesday.
Okay, so first, so it's not that week then? Because we start the calendar on that Sunday, so it's technically gonna be
So what day?
Tuesday the 9th,
Tuesday the 9th, I think is our first meeting then, right? Does that
7th.
work? Do you know what I'm saying? Do we
It's the
start on
second
a
Tuesday.
Monday of the calendar year, the calendar week, or do we start on?
We usually do the first first Tuesday of the month,
which would be January 2nd.
which would be January 2nd.
Technically January 2nd. Okay. Are we good? Then we're good for the 2nd.
Yeah.
I don't
Seven?
expect to have any wild New Year's Eve parties.
7
so I'll
p.m.
be all right.
On the 2nd. On the 2nd. I don't mean neither this year.
Yeah, you know what would be good too is if you send out an email reminder.
I'm gonna have to. Well, this
That would be
this
good.
one worked out because we had to change it around. So I
Yeah.
think everybody got the emails on this one. So I'll make sure to do that one.
I'm surprised Matt didn't stop by.
I think he was on the email trail from Bill. Okay.
So I make a motion, we adjourn.
Anybody second it?
Second.
Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Awesome.